Now let's look at AWS Control Tower. So it's an easy way for you to set up and govern a secure and compliant multi-account AWS environments based on best practices. So out of it, you're going to get your environment automated in just a few clicks. You're going to have ongoing policy management using guardrails, and we see this in this lecture. We're going to detect policy violations and remediate them automatically, and we can monitor compliance through an interactive dashboard. So Control Tower is a way for you to really automate best practice multi-accounts, and it runs on top of AWS organization. So it's going to set up an organization for you and then organize these accounts and implement automatically the service control policies you need. So out of it, there is the account factory, and this is to automate account provisioning and deployments, and it allows you to create pre-approved baseline and configuration options for all the accounts in your organization, such as, for example, configuring the default VPC, configuring the subnets, the regions, and so on. And to do so is going to use the underlying service called the AWS Service Catalog to provision these new accounts. So let's have a look in where an account factory will be very helpful. So we have a cloud computing environment, and then we have a data center with an ADFS and an Active Directory. And now we're going to establish a VPN or direct connect connection between the cloud and the corporate data center. And so therefore, when we use Control Tower and a landing zone, and we create accounts for account factory, then at the center of it is going to be IAM Identity Center. And we can set up in different ways, but if you wanted to integrate with Microsoft Active Directory on your corporate data center, then you would create an AWS Managed Microsoft AD, which would be the source of authentication for your IAM Identity Center. And then you would create a two-way trust between Active Directory on your corporate data center and AWS. From there, any accounts created through your landing zone and through Account Factory will be properly configured to leverage authentication through IAM Identity Center, and therefore use underlyingly the Active Directory you have in the cloud and the one you have also on your corporate data center. Now, there's another thing with Control Tower called guardrails, and this is used to detect and remediate policy violations. So it's going to give you ongoing governance, and then you have two kinds of guardrails. You have preventive guardrails, where you use SCPs, and this is, for example, to have an action to disable or disallow the creation of access keys from the root user. That's one way. Or detective, where you want to give all permissions to your accounts, but then you use config to detect, for example, whether or not MFA is enabled for the root user and so on. And config will be very helpful because it gives you compliance or non-compliance of resources. And so here's an example. We, for example, want to see which resources are untagged. So we have a detective guardrail in Control Tower using config, and it's going to monitor for untagged resources in your member accounts as part of your organization. It's going to trigger if it's non-compliant an SNS topic, which can notify an admin, maybe invoke a Lambda function, and that Lambda function itself can remediate to this and add tags where needed. So there are a few guardrail levels for Control Tower. There's the mandatory guardrail, which is automatically enabled and enforced by AWS Control Tower. So for example, you want to disallow public read access to the log archive accounts, and this is mandatory. Strongly recommended, which is based on AWS practices. And for example, you want to say you want to enable EBS volumes attached to EC2 instances. And then you have elective guardrails, which is commonly used by enterprises. This is optional as well. For example, to disallow delete actions without MFA and S3 buckets. Okay, so that's it for Control Tower. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture.